Hey, everybody. Mark and I have over 20 years of experience as therapists and as addicts in long-term successful recovery. We know better than anyone what works and what doesn't to break out of porn and sex addiction, heal betrayal trauma, and reclaim your relationship.
And we've poured all of our personal and professional recovery and healing experience into a first-of-its-kind program for addicts, spouses, and couples. We call it Dare to Connect.
At least 4 times every week, we engage with you in real time, in the trenches, giving you the knowledge and the tools to take back your life and relationship.
Whatever else you've done on your journey for healing and recovery, you've never done anything like this.
Mark and I, we've made all the mistakes, so you don't have to. Don't reinvent the wheel.
We all know tomorrow never comes. Look, don't wait one more day to change. Claim your free 2-week trial today at daretoconnectnow.com.
Hey, everybody. I'm Steve Moore.
And I'm Mark Castleman.
We know the pain and heartbreak of porn and sex addiction.
And we know the triumph of breaking completely free.
Every day, we help our clients find hope and healing.
Join us in the fight to take back your life, your marriage, and be stronger than ever.
This is the PBSC Squared podcast. All right, Mark, honesty time. Okay. This is going to be, I hope everybody's ready for this because it's going to be like confessions of successful recovering porn addicts. That's what we're doing here for a second. We're doing this 3-part series, as you know, on recovery, healing in the holidays. Last week, it was all about triggers and managing them and working through those. And we've got balancing family dynamics with your family, with in-laws, with other people that you spend time with during the holidays next week, which will be fun and exciting, I'm sure. But this week, want to kind of open us up with a question. So you ready for honesty time?
Yeah, well, the title is very telling, right? It's Recovery, Healing in the Holidays, Part 2. Self-care? Forget that. It's the holidays, bro.
So Mark and I, we're going to try and be transparent today and own our stuff, just like we ask all of you to do. We were talking about our holiday break. Both of us decided to take the week off last week, which was much needed, I think, for both of us. And we kind of compared notes a little bit, how the week went. And I'm going to let Mark talk about his here in a second. I'll be honest. I did do some good things with my holiday in terms of like good self-care and recharging. And there were some less effective things that I probably did. I could have probably done it better. Now, recovery is never an exact science, so either perfection, progress, not perfection. But looking back on the week, I think I'll start off with the things I did poorly. To a degree, I did let my hair down a little bit in terms of like making. Now, I was up at a cabin while I was on break, but to be fair, it wasn't that hard to get cell reception if I really wanted. So I didn't do as much as I should have and reach out calls and connecting with people. I did get some stuff from some sponsors and things I'm working with. So, but I did let my guard down that way. I also didn't go to my meeting that week. It was a busy day when I usually do my 12-step group virtually. And I could use that as an excuse, but I just didn't make it enough of a priority. So and I definitely felt a little bit of the impact with that. We'll talk about that a little bit in here in a minute. Some of the better things that I did, which we'll talk more about here, were, kind of having a structure and doing some things well that way. So I did, if I was to grade myself, I'm giving myself like a solid, I don't know, probably B minus. Something like that. In terms of the week. How about yourself, my friend?
Well, so my vacation actually started out really good. it was kind of a two-stage deal. We went to one location first, and then after about 2.5 or 3 days, traveled down to the final location. So the first location was good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, had good self-care, spiritual connection, super, super good connected with my wife. It was really quite delightful, to tell you the truth. Very renewing, very recharging. It was, I would give myself like an A, maybe even an A plus for the first 2.5 or 3 days.
Nice.
Then we arrived at the beach in Southern California, where I grew up.
Bum, bum, bum.
And I don't know what it was, but something kicked in like I was 16 years old again. We're at the beach, brah, and we are like totally on vacation, man. And I don't know what happened, but all the self-care and all the structure and all the routine went completely out the window. And I just went into laying on the beach slug mode. And I have to give myself like, I don't know, a D minus for like 3 of those days.
Oh, shoot.
And I was like, I don't know. All I can say is just something from the old mindset from when I was a kid, because that's where we would go to completely chill and
Totally.
hang out. And it was the beach, man. And
Yeah.
I just like had a complete meltdown with regard to self-care and recovery, not from a necessarily a relapse standpoint, but just I'm on vacation, and I'm on vacation from everything.
Yes.
Everything. I'm doing nothing but just laying here. Because after all, I've worked my butt off and I deserve to just lay here.
Yes.
And so I didn't recognize it till about 3 days in. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, have you noticed that, have I been a little aloof and kind of isolated and sort of quiet and like looking like a blank stares on my face?
Yes.
He's like, yes.
Absolutely.
And we started to talk about it. I was like, oh, shoot. I'm in like a complete abandon mode, with regard to my stuff. And so I did a turnaround and an assessment and tried to make some corrections, and did manage to kind of get back on track, and our connection
Yes.
was much better. And so if I had to give the overall vacation a total overall rating, probably like a B minus, maybe a C plus.
Nice.
Probably.
Well, and you bring up a great point, because I know that we obviously talk to a wide audience. We got listeners, I think, in what, 32, 35 countries now?
100.
100. Is it 100?
Yeah, we actually hit 100.
Apparently I'm behind the times a little bit. Well, 100, there you go. So I know we're talking to a wide scope of people, but here in America and probably elsewhere, probably in many places, the phrase, but it's the holidays,
Oh my gosh.
is a really dangerous one. I look back over time and I can't tell you how many whole pumpkin pies I've eaten under the guise of it's the holidays in one sitting.
The whole pie, yeah.
Sure, I'm diabetic. And sure, this has more sugar than I should have in like a 6-month period. But it's the holidays.
It's the holidays.
Right? And it is. I think many bad decisions have been made under that guise. And I think that kind of hits home with what we're talking about here, because what we're talking about today obviously applies to the holidays, and that's why we're talking about it now. But this really applies to any vacation time.
Yes.
I have observed that with myself, Mark has seen the same thing, obviously, and we've seen it with our clients, that there really is a tendency out there in recovery when we take a break from like work, and the big major stressors of life. We as addicts and partners, it's very easy for a variety of reasons to just kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, this is a break from life. Right?
Yes.
Like from everything.
Yes. And what I find, and I struggle with this attitude for a long time, and I deal with it with my clients all the time. It's this mindset that comes in that says, one day after doing all this recovery and healing work, I can then have a normal life. There'll come a time where I won't have to do this anymore. I could be like everybody else.
Yeah, so true.
And man, do we tend to bring that attitude into vacations and holiday time. It's like, okay, I don't have to do all those things because I'm on It's the holidays. And it's this thing that says, you're doing all this so that
Uh,
you can heal and recover, but then one day you can just let it all go and step into some other way that you live your life.
yeah.
And that can really trip you up if you get into that mindset.
You're so right. So it does. I think I think you hit it spot on. I think a lot of this has to do with the paradigm that we have about recovery, right? And it's important to be checking that always, because even when we don't start out this way, and sometimes we do start out this way, it is easy to look at the quote unquote recovery process as this is a temporary thing that I'm
Mhm.
doing for X amount of months or maybe X amount of years, with the understanding that eventually I'm going to go back and be quote unquote normal,
Yes.
right? The
Yep.
problem is that I have witnessed, and I think Mark has as well, that in our experience, in most cases, our old definition of normal was not normal. It
You're
was
right.
highly dysfunctional. It was
Yes.
survival,
Yep.
right? And when we say that and it's hard to see that at the beginning of recovery, but you really want to be careful in observing that, because really it's what we're saying if we're talking about it in that light is, man, I can't wait till I'm done with all this healing so I can go back to self-destruction again. Like that would be one day I'll get to go back to that, you
And
know?
that's really kind of what you're saying. And from a neuroscience standpoint, remember, when you feel your brain going into that dialogue, one day I'll be able to be done with this and go back to normal. All it's really saying is, I one day want to go back to my drug of choice, my place of comfort, my old ways, my old habits, because that's comfortable, that's familiar. That's
Yeah.
what I learned to rely on for most of my life. And I want to go back to that someday. So can we get this over with?
Can I play devil's advocate to that real quick? Because
Yes.
this is perfect, right? Um, because I can already hear our listeners. I can hear almost myself, my recovery inner self, kind of pushing against that, saying, "Well, but Mark, I've been sober for years. What do you mean I'm going back into my old addict ways?
Mm,
What do you
yes.
mean?
I've been sober for years.
I mean, I'm not acting
Yeah.
out, right? Like, whoa,
Yeah.
don't come at me that way. Like, I'm not acting out. I am not doing any
Yeah.
of that stuff.
I achieved the goal. I achieved the end. We did what we set out to do. Now I don't
Yes.
now I don't have to do those things anymore. Because now I can
Now,
now I can live like everybody else. I can be a normal guy again.
yes, exactly. And again, that definition of normal, right, is off. And what we're really saying there, I mean, and I've been guilty of this, right? Is when we say that kind of thing, like I've been acting out. What I'm really saying is, hey, just because I'm not doing recovery doesn't, hey, look, I'm not acting out. I've just found new, less healthy ways of avoidance and numbing out. Okay. Like,
Exactly.
my marriage isn't on the line anymore. you know?
Yeah.
And so oftentimes those old attitudes and those old ways of thinking can continue to persist even into sobriety. And so this is one of those, right? That
And
we're
I and one of the
talking about
things
today.
I can offer to our listeners that's really been helpful to me and to all the people I work with, if you just can change the vocabulary a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of
Yeah.
always referring to this as my recovery work, my healing work, you get to the place where you realize that what we're talking about is healthy living.
Yes.
It is a
Absolutely.
lifestyle. It's a way to come at life.
Yes.
And Mike, what I say now is, why wouldn't you want to live like this?
Yeah.
What things are we having you do, or what are you engaging in that's so bad that you want to abandon as quickly as possible? Don't you
Sure.
want to continue to enjoy this for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
This, the self-connection, the connecting with others, the feeling at peace, the sense of confidence, all the things that recovery and healing bring you. Why would you want to suddenly set those aside and go back to some imaginary thing? This is healthy living.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at, I always tell my clients, if you look at like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the famous
Hmm.
book, the stuff that we have people do in recovery, right? Now, there are a few things that are additional that are a little bit unique, but I would say at least 2/3 plus of the stuff that we do in recovery is stuff that you would find in a book like that,
It's the
right?
7 habits. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because in my former professional pursuits, I actually had some really close workings with the people at the 7 habits. And
Mm,
one of the things I asked them many years ago, first of all, was how many people read your 7 habits book all the way through? And the answer was about 10%.
okay.
Then I asked, and how many of those people that read it all the way through actually implement one of the 7 habits on a permanent basis in their life? In other
Mm,
words, they've read it, they get excited, but if you talk to them 5 years from now, they're still living it. And the
Yeah.
answer to that was, again, about 10%. So if you add all that together, about 1% of those who buy the book actually permanently live one of the habits on a lifelong basis. 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of this attitude, right? Well, I read that and it was exciting, but now I can get back to life.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, Mark and Steve here. Are you looking to take your recovery and your marriage to the next level?
We work with individuals and couples one-on-one.
With both in-person and online therapy options, you have access to the experts anytime, anywhere.
To learn more, visit us at tbscpodcast.com. Yeah, no, it's an excellent point. And yeah, when we start to look at this and adopt that mentality, this is Mark, you said it really well. Why would I want to give this up?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a good thing. It makes me think of a Bill Cosby skit that I saw. And it's a long drawn out deal, but he talks about how, so often in life we do things like we go to work all week, right? And we're productive and we do all these awesome things so that we can then, now Mark and I don't drink, but so then we can go to the metaphorical bar, right? Be that our addiction or whatever. And the way Bill Cosby talks about is, we go and for those 2 days, we just completely destroy ourselves because we quote unquote earned it, right?
Yes.
Hey, I did really well this week. I deserve to be throwing up and having hangovers for the next 2 days. Like I earned this.
Exactly.
But how often do we do that like in recovery, right? And so learning it now that doesn't mean that I know there are probably a few listeners who are like, oh gosh, here comes the boom. My wife's listening. I'm going to be accountable for this. I just have to do 8 hours of recovery on my off time.
Vacation on the holidays, yeah. 8
That
hours a
becomes
day of
my
recovery.
job. Yeah, that becomes my job. That's what I got to do to save this thing. And it absolutely isn't. Because even though there are a lot of activities that are less of, recovery oriented activities, or let's broaden it a little bit more, recreational or recharging activities they all come on a spectrum, right, of like effectiveness as far as recharging goes.
Yeah.
And they all kind of offer different benefits.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it really becomes a function of how do I marry the vacation world or the holiday world with my recovery and healing world?
Totally.
How do I bring those two worlds together during these holidays?
Yes. Playing a little bit of playing a little bit of Xbox with my brother-in-law and spending some good time with him on the holidays. Awesome idea. Getting on the Xbox and binging it for 2 days straight and, with 12 cans of Mountain Dew around me because I haven't slept in 18 hours. Bad idea.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Like it's not as though we have to throw out all of our old recovery activities, but if any of you are like, this is one of my big flaws, and maybe some of you addicts can relate to this. It has been historically hard for me to do recreation in piecemeal. If I go into, and this is where I get guilty on like a holiday break and have to be really careful, because it's easy for me to just take those activities that do give me a break or an escape, and the entire vacation becomes an escape.
Yes.
And I get to the end of it. It's like, great. Well, I'm level 5,000 in Call of Duty or whatever. And I have not recharged at all. That's how I used to do it,
And that's the thing. You come out of so how many people, the big joke out there is after holidays hangover.
Yeah.
Right now I come off the holidays and I'm getting back into work and my gosh, I need a holiday to recover from my holiday. And you got to look at that and go, whoa, 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 wait a second. Something's not right about this.
Clearly we're doing this wrong.
So, yeah, as I look at that, I think and I invite our listeners, what are some creative ways that you can begin to integrate the holidays into your recovery and healing work? Get outside the box, be creative, be fluid, be flexible. What are some ways that you can get your self-care and your connection and so forth in, while also enjoying the holidays fully? There's lots of creative ways to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about, for example, let's just take some examples. Prayer, for example. If you have very formal, get on your knees, use the right languaging kind of prayers. Maybe during the holidays, you experiment and go out for a walk to look at all the Christmas lights. And while you're on your walk, you have a raw, real conversation with God.
Yes,
There's spiritual connection time while I'm enjoying the holidays. Look at that.
absolutely.
So many ways to do that, right?
Yes. Well, I think one of the things that leads us down that path, because I know for me, and I think for many, is that recovery can become. I think you use the term mechanized. It becomes
Yes,
repetitive. It
very
becomes
robotic.
kind of through this. And when I work with clients, one of the things that we talk about oftentimes is one. The goal with good solid recovery is having this long list of recovery tools, right? Things that you can do, activities that you can engage in, exercises that you can do, studies, things that you can study. And then we pick we pick things from that list every day and we mix it up that way. But like you're indicating, and I really love what you're saying, you can mix up even those baseline ones that you do every day, like journaling, for example. I have clients journal every day, no matter what, right?
Right.
You can even mix up that core level. Maybe during the week of Thanksgiving, you turn that journal into, normally this is like the emotional journaling that my therapist has me do. I'm still going to do that, but I'm going to focus it on gratitude about the holidays for this
Right.
week, right? I'm going to focus that 5 minutes of let's get emotionally vulnerable, but about how the holidays have been good and beneficial for me in the past, what they've done for me.
And for example, during the holidays, if let's say that you have a Christian faith, you might turn a lot of what you do with journaling and meditation and so forth directly upon Jesus
Yeah,
and really strengthen and deepen your relationship with him. Or whatever your faith tradition is, the holidays could be a
exactly.
great time to get more in tune with that and really find the joy of it and the connection to it. And of course, the whole array of ways to connect with others during the holidays. Your spouse, your family, friends, people in the community that are in need of being served and lifted and loved. There's just so many, and all of that qualifies under the banner called recovery and healing.
Yes.
Right? It's all under it. The thing I discovered I had to be reminded of on my vacation is really the reason that we want to continue to engage in self-care and recovery and healing, the foundational principles, is because they in fact allow you and me to be more able to recharge, be more able to renew.
Amen.
Think of it as kind of going into a period in the holidays where you're going to plug yourself into a battery charger and you're going to really renew your energy levels.
Yes.
If you're not engaging in self-care and connecting and sound recovery healing practices, you're going to find that recharging is blocked.
Totally.
And that's what I found at the beach for those 3 or 4 days. I did
Yeah.
not come out of that 3 or 4 days renewed or recharged. I
Hmm.
was like drained and
Yeah.
I wasn't connecting and I was depressed and I just felt dull and down. I'm like, am I actually on vacation? I don't
Yes.
think so.
Yes.
And I forgot that it's those other activities that allow me to be fully able to receive the renewing and the connecting and the recharging.
That is so true. If all of I'm doing on my vacation are avoidance or numbing out activities, again,
Hmm.
a certain avoidance, I want to be clear, certain, okay, emphasis on that. Certain avoidance or numbing out activities are not inherently bad.
No.
Nobody can be present all the time, right? There are obviously very toxic versions like addiction related type things, but again, it can be healthy to escape into a good book for a couple of hours, right?
Absolutely.
The problem, I think, is where we do what I was kind of describing earlier, which leads to what you're talking about, which is we get into this, everything that we're doing becomes kind of avoidant, right?
Yes.
And escapee. And the
Yep.
whole thing is sort of, we're not acting out in our addiction for those of us that are addicts, right, per se, but we're not tuning into life either.
Exactly.
Which like you're saying, I mean, you bring up that is, but tuning into life is what allows you to actually appreciate that time
Yes.
and to value it. I'm sure I'm not the only one on this podcast listening right now, and Mark may even feel the same way, where I've gotten to the end of a vacation. I've actually been really angry with myself because I didn't know exactly all the reasons why initially until I, started to get good with recovery. but I would feel angry with myself like I wasted the holiday,
Yes.
right?
So true. So true.
It was just a waste.
And
And
as we finish this up and we give all the listeners an assignment, what we would encourage you to do is, first of all, be as aware and mindful of the signs that perhaps you're going off the self-care rails. Start
yes,
to notice what those are: moody, depressed, up and down, disconnected, aloof, apathetic. Are you seeing some of those things? If you notice them, it means that you're probably off the rails or headed that way.
yes,
Notice what those are. And then here's a big one. And give your partner, your spouse, someone close to you in your life permission to let you know if they see that you have those signs going on with you.
yes,
And I say permission because if they just come and tell you, you're going to be resentful and you're going to be defensive. But if you tell them, please tell me if you notice that I'm like totally vegging out during the holidays and not doing the healthy living skills that I need to.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, I would only thing I think I would echo or add to that is one is definitely be looking out for. I see this a lot with my clients is feeling like you're getting kind of back into a controlling. I need to run my own show mode.
Yes.
Right? When and obviously we all want to have a structure and take charge, and that's healthy. But where we start getting easily kind of a hallmark of falling into addiction mode, so to speak, is being easily thrown off in our plans, right?
Yes.
If our plans get thrown off and it all goes to crap, that usually speaks back to previous podcasts we've talked about around codependency and why am I so reliant on my plan for happiness? Am I not getting that from other healthier sources, right? That whole discussion. So it is. You can take this assignment, even guys. This is a good example of what we were talking about before. Integrate it into what you already do. Take take a check-in or two this week, right? We're a couple weeks out from the Christmas break. Some of you may already be on it, and we're super jealous of you if you are. But take a couple of check-ins and have them at the end be kind of a focus on the planning. What are some activities that we can do together that are still Christmas oriented, that are still holiday oriented, but that allow us to be able to uh, get some good recovery work in there as well and healing work so that we can keep the progress going and the momentum that we've been gaining.
Yep. I love it. Yeah. Talk about a plan, a structure,
Yes.
some kind, not so rigid that,
Yeah.
it ends up being a lousy holiday, but some kind of a general structure and talking about the things we can engage in to be creative so that we're still doing recovery and healing and that we enjoy ourselves and have a great, healthy living holiday.
Yes.
There you go. That's what we wish for, a healthy living holiday.
Absolutely. Have a great week, everybody. It's good. We as always appreciate you being here with us. While we've got part 3 to this 3-part recovery, healing, in the holidays series that we're doing. Please let us know as always at pbscpodcast.com. That's pbscpodcast.com. Of any questions, concerns that you've got, we'd love to hear from you and love to reach out and form future podcasts around what you our listeners want. We appreciate you. So.
Hey, we'll talk to you next week and happy holidays.
Happy holidays, guys. Bye-bye.
That's all for today. Thanks for joining us. And remember, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. Together, we can do the impossible.
To learn more about Mark and Steve and to listen to more podcast episodes, visit us at pbscpodcast.com. Everything expressed on the PBSC podcast are the opinions of the hosts and the participants and is for informational and educational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered mental health therapy or as a substitute thereof. It is strongly recommended that you seek out the clinical guidance of an individual qualified mental health professional. If you're experiencing thoughts of suicide, self-harm, or a desire to harm others, please dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.